Hey, happy summer to all of you. This is Stevenson from Homes by Sun with Remax. Hope everyone's safe and sound and enjoying this nice warm weather. Today, I wanted to talk to you about some of the ways that you can use to find a residential tenant for your residential rental property. So let's go through some of the ways that I'm going to be suggesting to you, and hopefully it will help you find the perfect tenant for your property. All right, so if you have been following my videos, you know that I put out a couple of investment videos. First one had to do with, why someone should not have been investing in real estate. Essentially, that's a guide to what you should be looking out for before you get into real estate investment. Second video had to do with the type of property that you can invest in, such as pre-constructions, residential properties, or commercial properties. Now, let's just say that you've decided that you're going to become a landlord and you've purchased a residential property. Now, the property is closing soon, so your first question is, well, what am I going to do to find the tenant? We're going to try to find as good of a tenant as we can, a tenant that hopefully is not going to give you any problems during the tenancy, a tenant who hopefully that's going to take care of your unit, and last but not least, a tenant that's going to be continuing paying your rent. That's what we want. So what are some of those ways that you can use? Well, I'm going to show you 4 ways that you can use leverage to find your tenant. The first way, obviously, is to hire somebody like myself. I've been in real estate for over 20 years, and I've dealt with no less than 300 to 400 different tenants because I manage properties, and every year many properties change hands, like different tenants move in and out. So, I've dealt with a lot of applicants, people that wanted to rent one of the rental properties that I'm listing. So I've been through it all, and what I can tell you is you hiring a professional realtor, they're gonna use their experience, their intuition to help you find a tenant. Furthermore, what I can offer you is that through specific questions that I'm going to be asking the tenant, I can gauge how they respond, the type of information that I receive back, and I can already paint a picture as to whether they're going to be a troublesome tenant or whether they're going to be someone that's going to pay you rent on time and not cause issues. So when you hire a professional realtor such as myself, you're going to get a realtor that's going to use the latest technology to help you with your rental properties. We're going to leverage professional HDR photos. We're going to create a 3D Matterport virtual tour that potential tenants can walk through, and as well, we're going to create live in-person video to showcase your properties. So multitude of ways to show how beautiful your rental property is. As well, we're going to leverage the power of multiple listing service, the MLS. So for a fee, you're going to have 50,000 agents working for you, tapping into their database of qualified potential tenants and bring to you. As well, we're going to handle all the paperwork, all the closing arrangement that needs to happen during the transaction. So there are a lot of steps that's involved in finding a tenant, and all the way to them moving in. We're going to take care of all of that, so you don't have to lift a finger. So that's the first way of you finding a tenant, is to hire a professional. Now be sure when you are interviewing agents for the task, find out how many rentals they do a year. Some agents never do any rentals, so they're not going to be able to have the knowledge or intuition to screen these tenants for you. And so you want someone that's very experienced dealing with rental property, because that's a completely different field. All right, so the second way that you can try to find a tenant for your rental property is obviously do it yourself. There are a few ways to go about it, but when you're doing it yourself, you're basically the person that's going to answer all the calls, the person that's going to show the unit, the person that's going to screen them, and the person that's going to have to deal with all the paperwork and handing them the keys. Now, where are some of the ways that you can do it yourself if you choose to? Well, the first way is obviously the internet. There are hundreds of websites that you can post to, Craigslist, Kijiji, rentfaster.ca, PatMapper. I just off the top of my head, I can name a few, but there are tons more. So the only issue with on the internet is what I find is the internet leads are usually a little bit less qualified because they're not working with an agent. So they're just browsing around. They're randomly contacting landlords such as yourself. The other issue is when you're listed on the internet, many times you have to put your actual contact information. So you open yourself up to scammers. When you list it with a realtor, your privacy, your information is hidden. They only contact the realtor, they never contact the landlord directly. So that's a big difference. So if you wanted to learn more about how to screen tenants, watch out for my next video where I'm going to show you the tools, the tricks that I use to try to screen tenants for my landlord. Now, there are a couple other ways for yourself to try to find your own tenant. Other than internet, what you can do is still go through the traditional printed media, such as neighborhood newspaper, classified ads. They still work, but you're focusing on a little bit more smaller area. And to go into even smaller area, let's say your rental property is near a school or university, and you do want to target students that are going back to school, let's say in September. What you can do is contact the school, see if they have a bulletin board that you can advertise in, or around where your rental property is. There's usually a community center, and you can go into the community center. They usually have boards that you can post listings or advertisings on. So there are just some of the suggestions that you can use to try to find your own tenant. So the third way of trying to get your unit rented out is actually rented to a rental agency. Now, there are agencies out there that rent residential units. In turn, they rent them out on a month-by-month basis to, let's say, someone that's coming in town for work or for a short-term study that they don't really want to sign a longer-term lease. So they will go through these property rental agencies. And those property rental agencies don't actually own any properties. They will rent your property. Now, the downside of that is a couple. First of all, you're gonna have to check with your, if your property is in a condominium, like in a building, you have to check with the property management office and the board to see if there are bylaws prohibiting you from renting that, doing that. So anything less than a year or 6 months, they consider a short-term rental. They might not allow you to do that. Second thing is because these rental agencies are still your tenant, any damages or anything like that, you may be responsible. And thirdly, because they are renting on a shorter term, things are likely gonna cause wear and tear a little bit faster. And as well, because they're rental agencies, they're guaranteeing you rent even though they could incur some vacancies. You're not gonna get the full market rent. They're gonna try to rent your unit a little bit lower than market rent, just so they can have some cushions if they have some vacancies. So that's a few downsides of renting to these rental agencies. All right, so the last way of getting your rental unit rented out is through short-term rental sites such as Airbnb. Now, I understand that it's probably not the best idea during this time, COVID-19, but it is a way when things get back to normal. I can foresee that a lot of units are going to go back onto short-term rentals. Now, the benefit of short-term rentals, very obvious, is you get a much higher rent because people are coming in only for a few days or a weekend. You're able to charge much higher daily rate than if you were to rent it out for a longer term. So that benefit alone is what drove a lot of people going onto the Airbnb route with their rental property. But if your property is in a condominium, then the same thing applies to the previous suggestion, is that you have to check with your board, you have to check with the local bylaw, you also need to check with municipal bylaw because such like Toronto are starting to license short-term rentals. Many municipalities have already done that, so you need to have a license before you can operate a short-term rental because they're considered hotels. The other items you need to look out for is home insurance. If you do any type of short-term rentals, you might be violating terms in your policy. The last thing you want is someone causing some damage to your rental properties and your insurance company denies any coverage because you're doing a short-term rental. So you need to be aware of all of that before you get into it. If it's your principal residence, you're renting out the basement for short-term rental, in all likelihood that should be okay, but you still need to check with your insurance and check with your local bylaws. There you have it, 4 ways to try to get your rental property rented out. If you want to learn more about how to screen tenants, let's say you're getting 3 or 4 people applying to your rental unit, how do you screen them? What questions you can ask and what question you cannot ask? I'm going to be discussing all of that in my next video. I hope you find this video useful. If you did, by all means, share with your friends and circles. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button below and the bell icon so you can be notified when I put out my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, bye for now.